Today I will show you how to make a complete custom outer wheel arch piece by using flat sheet metal.
First I will show you the tools and how I use them. Then the process of transforming the metal step by step. For those who can't wait to see the final results, I provided time steps.
Now let's take a quick look at the finished piece and then we go over to the tools. So now let's talk about the tools I used. First and most important tool, hands. In this case, my hands. They are good for bending sheet metal just without any other tool. You feel the surface, the highs and the low spots of your metal area. This is why I personally don't like wear gloves while shaping sheet metal, other than the welding and grinding work. Second most important tool, a set of body hammers and some hand anvils. I don't use any special ones. Basically all my tools are cheap Chinese stuff out of eBay. In third of priority, an anvil. If you don't have access to one, you can use like an I-beam steel or a piece of railroad to smash your metal on. So those are the basic tools you will need to start getting into metal shaping. But now let's go over to the metal shaping machines. The first thing you will need after your basic tools is a metal shrinker and stretcher. Like the name said, it stretches and shrinks metal. Stretching isn't a problem. That's basically what you do when you hammer metal on your anvil. But shrinking will bring you a whole new level of quality into your workshop. Let me show you what you can do with a simple bent piece of metal like this. So now let's move on to the next one. This is an English wheel. That's basically a tool to stretch metal as well, but way more smoother than smashing it with a hammer on an anvil. You can swap rolls with different radiuses and set different pressure of how hard you want to stretch and curve the metal. As you can see, this is a cheap tool out of eBay too. At the moment I'm into modifying it, like I did to the shrinker and stretcher last year. So you won't need expensive tools to get it all started. So now here it is. You can roll a bead or an edge into your sheet metal by using different rollers. So last but not least, a blenishing hammer. I use it a lot for pieces with tight radiuses like a coffee racer tail section or a motorcycle gas tank. It also is a cheap little tool out of eBay, but it's very noisy. Your neighbors will hate you. That's it. That's all the tools I used to make the outer sheet metal piece. There are more handy tools I will show you in a later episode, like the press brake over there. So now you at least heard of every tool and how I use them to shape this piece of flat sheet metal into this wheel arch you will see in the following build labs.
First I took a good amount of time to make a perfect template. I just filmed a video of how to make a perfect template just a few days ago on a Moto Guzzi coffee racer project, in which I built a full aluminium fairing. So if you are interested in either the template or the motorcycle, make sure to subscribe, because this will be one of the next big build series. For now I can tell you, the better the template, the better will be the whole process. Or let me ask you a question. How will you get a perfect fitting piece of sheet metal when the template isn't perfect? So let's move on to the car build. I transferred the template to the sheet metal. As you might noticed, I just did a template for the upper part of the wheel arch. For the outer and inner bend I used tape to draw 2 parallel lines to start cutting it out. So here's the first result of a good template. It gives you a good line to make a good straight cut and later have a nice edge or weld gap. Next I used the bead roller and the help of my friend Ralf to roll the first bend on. This bend is my guideline to get the sheet metal in position on the edge of my anvil, so I can hammer the bend all the way to an angle of about 90 degrees. But make sure to take your time and do it in little steps to protect the piece of metal from twisting. What would be the result if you would hammer it up to 90 degrees on the one end and still have it like 10 degrees on the other end? I made this bend for a reason. It will be my next guideline. I press it on the side of my lower die on the blenishing hammer. I machined this die on my lathe to have the same width than an E30 has on the original wheel arch. So as you see, it starts somehow to look like a wheel arch, but it needs to get more curved. And that's what we use the shrink-on stretcher for. Since we have the upper surface and the 90-degree bend we hammered at first on the anvil, we now have the opportunity to control the direction of the metal to 3D curve it. So the upper part first needs to be stretched and later will be shrinked on the edge. And the inner 90 bend just needs to be shrinked to make the wheel arch flow nicely around the wheel. So like I said in the beginning where I showed you the tools, the English wheel basically is nothing else than a stretching tool. And that's basically the secret about metal shaping. It just is 3 things: bending it, stretching it and shrinking it. And do it as long as it needs till it fits. Because you first made a template that fitted nicely, the metal will fit too when you put enough effort in it. And that's what you basically just saw. It took me around 8 hours to make it look and fit like this. And I can tell you, to make the other side match the first side perfect took me over 10 days. Days where I left my shop after a 10-hour day with no satisfying result. And a metal piece thrown in the metal scrap barrel. Just to start the next day with a new try that ended with a way more filled scrap barrel at the evening. But somehow, someday it ended with a perfect fitting piece on the other side as well, like you saw in the rolling shot intro. It just takes one more try, then arrow.
So if you like the build labs, please leave a comment and tell me why. In the next episode I will weld in the piece we made today and will tell you some tricks to make it with hopefully no heat dents. And I will show you the basic tools and what it takes to get it nice and smooth. So that's it with this episode. Stay tuned and maybe take a look in my online shop if you want to support me with buying some merch. Bye.